So welcome to our second episode of the vlog.
Yay!
I'm here with Brian Cuban and I'm Shauna-Kaye Spencer, and welcome today. I feel like I know you. I read your book.
Oh, thank you. You're the one.
Yes. I feel like I know you so well. Like, I feel like I know you more than I know my closest friends.
Well, it's good to be back here at Pitt Law.
Yeah.
It's been a long time. I was here a couple months ago, but that was the first time I'd been back since I graduated.
Really?
In '86.
I'm
yes.
sure it looks very different.
It does look different.
Does Oakland look different too?
Oakland looks a lot different. And no, I had been back to Oakland.
Okay.
I was born and raised in Pittsburgh, in
Right,
Mount Lebanon,
right,
so
right.
I'd been to Oakland before since then, but I hadn't been in the law school.
Okay. Does your family still live here?
My mom still lives in the house we grew up in.
Okay.
In
Wow.
Mount Lebanon,
That's
sure.
exciting. That's exciting. So, we want to talk a little bit about your book.
Sure.
What led you to addiction and your struggles with depression?
The path to those issues started here in Pittsburgh.
Right.
Growing up in Mount Lebanon, and I was the middle of 3 children, and I was a very shy child. I was very middle child syndrome, and I wore negative things that were said to me like kind of like a suit, and
Right.
these comments became who I was.
Right.
And unfortunately, I had a difficult relationship at home. There was a lot of fat shaming. That is not to blame my parents or anything, because
Right.
parents do not cause depression, addiction, or eating
Right.
disorders, but the home environment can have an effect,
Right.
because we know cause and correlation are 2 different things. It does correlate with mental health issues. And then there was bullying in my high school. I was physically assaulted, and all of these things kind of came together to the point where I would look in the mirror and just saw this horrendous, quote-unquote, fat pig, as I would be called in high school. I was an overweight child. And that led to the development of an eating disorder,
Right.
anorexia, in 1979. I would later transition to bulimia.
Right.
And this was at a time when eating disorders weren't talked about for men or women.
Right.
The singer Karen Carpenter would die from complications related to anorexia in 1983
Right.
and bring eating disorders into the pre-digital national spotlight,
Right.
but also kind of cement eating disorders as something that only women went through,
Right.
not guys. Guys don't get eating disorders. And that is a stigma we still fight today, even though about 25% of all those with eating disorders are male.
Right.
And you might be surprised to learn that according to the study of law student well-being, about 25% of law students suffer from some sort of disordered eating activity. Disordered
wow.
eating, about 25%.
Wow, that's so heartbreaking to hear.
Yes.
Did you know that you had an eating disorder?
I had no idea. I did not realize I had an eating disorder until I was in my 40s.
Wow, okay.
But what I did know is that these were disorders. When I binged and purged, it gave me a feeling of peace for a few seconds, and it gave me a feeling of being loved, that I would be loved, and that the next day everything would be okay. And I was engaging in this act that I didn't understand, binging and purging.
Right.
But when that feeling went away, the shame came in and filled the void.
Right.
The shame of engaging in an act that instinctively I knew that men didn't do.
Right.
We just didn't do those things, and it
Right.
was shameful, and I shouldn't tell anyone.
Right.
And this was at Penn State.
Right. I went to Penn State too.
All right. My sophomore year, and I turned 21, and I transitioned into drinking,
Right.
because if I couldn't change how I felt through binging and purging, I would mute how I felt. I wouldn't feel anything.
Right.
And before I knew it, I was becoming intoxicated all the time, and I was getting drunk. I was going to class drunk. I was have to get drunk just to leave the house, and I became a quote-unquote alcoholic.
Right.
As a student at Penn State, I was a binge drinking alcoholic, and I also began running excessively. I developed exercise bulimia.
Right.
I was running 10 miles a day, 20 miles a day,
Wow.
because if no one was ever going to love me, I might as well just do things I could do alone
Right.
and be by myself. So at Penn State, I was binging and purging, running 10 to 20 miles a day. I was a problem drinker. That's a lot of stress on the body.
Right.
There were days I was so dehydrated and weak I couldn't get out of bed.
Wow.
I wanted to be a police officer.
Right.
That would have worked out well, right? And so I had no thoughts about going to law school. But what I wanted was not to have to leave school, because if I leave school, then I have to show people who I really am.
Afraid of the real world.
I was afraid of the real world, not because there are adults in the real world, but
Right.
because I had ownership of all these mental health issues that belonged to me.
Right.
And if I walk out in the world, they no longer belong to me, and
Right.
people are going to be ashamed of me and make fun of me. They're going to think I'm this fat pig from high school, and nobody was going to love me or hire me or whatever. One day I'm sitting in the placement office at Penn State looking through police officer jobs,
Right.
and there are these two guys talking about going to law school. They're from Pittsburgh, talking about going to Pitt Law. I had never thought about going to law school before that moment. I started thinking about it sitting there at that table. The bells started going off in my head. Not the bells of, hey, I could be a lawyer, this is a good career. The bells of, I could stay in school for 3 more years, I can binge and purge, I can run 20 miles a day, I can drink,
Right.
and I don't have to show my true self as I saw it to anyone.
Right. You don't have to go into the real world. You
That's
don't
right.
have to. You can stay in school and do what you used to do.
I could survive
Exactly.
because my mental health issues were about surviving day to day.
Right.
And then in 1987, the summer of 1987, I discovered the one thing that allowed me for 15 seconds or 20 seconds to look in the mirror and love myself, and that's all I ever wanted. That look in the mirror and all those kids at Pitt Law love me, my mother loved me, my dad loved me, and all my friends loved me, the kids who bullied me loved me. I discovered cocaine. I did my
Right.
first line of cocaine in the bathroom of a hotel in Dallas, Texas in 1987, and instantly became addicted.
Right.
Instantly. Not dependent, that's different, biologically.
Right.
Became psychologically addicted to
Addicted.
looking in the mirror and this feeling of self-love.
Right.
Looking back, you have to remember, when you have someone who just spent his entire life looking in that mirror and just becoming nauseous because he so despised that
Right.
person and having this emptiness in your stomach,
Right.
then all of a sudden this artificial feeling of self-love came in.
You latch onto it.
I latched onto it, and I had to have that feeling again and again and again. Became psychologically addicted to cocaine.
Right.
I would later become biologically dependent on it, and I would go through a brutal
Right.
detox. And so cocaine and alcohol took over my life. I kid when I speak. I say, "Well, you all have to be wondering, well, how does this guy still have his license?" I said, "Well, it was never suspended. I haven't been disbarred, but it wasn't for a lack of trying." And I say that tongue in cheek, but
Wow.
when law students who are suffering from mental health issues, whether it's alcohol,
Right.
opiates, clinical depression, whatever it may be, don't tell anyone, and they keep kicking that can down the road because they're afraid of character and fitness. They're
Right.
afraid they won't get to take the bar exam with their class.
Right.
They're afraid if they go to their dean of students, he's going to rat them out to
Right.
C and F.
Right.
All the-
Everybody's gonna know that
Everyone's
you have a
going to
problem.
know. I'll never get a job. I'll never
Right.
get work.
People will judge me.
But
Right.
I cannot do anything and just kick that can down the road and
Right.
take that bar exam
Right.
and get through that. And before you know it, that can is kicked again and again and again. And before you know it, you're Brian Cuban or Joe Fiskunis, with another problem.
Right.
One of the hardest conversations I have with a struggling law student or struggling lawyer is to bring them to a place where they understand that if there is not recovery, if there is not treatment, that it may not be now,
Right.
it may not be here, it may not be there, but the consequences will catch up to the problem.
Right.
Whether it's a failed marriage,
Right.
whether it's a DWI, right here, whether it's conduct or malpractice,
Right.
all of a sudden it becomes acceptable to take money from your client's trust account.
Right.
You tell yourself that.
These things are okay.
It's
I don't have a
okay.
problem.
It's okay because dealing with where I am and surviving, these are the things I need to do to survive.
Exactly.
So we adjust our moral plane, we adjust our normal,
Right.
and we do these things. And then all of a sudden, your license is at risk. All of a sudden, your freedom's at risk. But as law students and lawyers, we look here. No, that's not me. That'll never
Right.
be me. That'll never be. Well, let's ensure that it isn't you
Right.
by dealing with it here and not here.
Right.
Because I will tell you something. There is no when someone's struggling and they're not in recovery, There is no such thing as a high-functioning law student.
Right.
There is no such thing as a high-functioning lawyer. There is no such thing.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
For being the voice to help us law students.
Thanks. Is there anything you want to ask? You allowed me to monologue.
No, you're fine. I asked my questions.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Well, thank you, Brian. Check out our next episode. See you then.